Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Radnor Township School District Finance Committee meeting for Tuesday, May 6, 2025. First item on the agenda, introductions and administrative remarks. Mr. Pauling?
Yes, thank you. So I was able to attend a joint meeting today between PASBO, School Business Officials Organization, and PASA, the Superintendent's Organization in Harrisburg at the Capitol. We had individual legislative meetings, so I did have some time with Representative Borowski, and we talked about different things that are going on right now with cyber charter funding reform. We talked about mandate waivers and a couple other things that are going on. It was very busy because it was a joint session, which is not often happening. So it was very busy at the Capitol, but we had a good meeting. We also met with the Department of Education to talk about some things going on. Not much new information on the what's going on at the federal level right now, but and then we had a press conference with the joint groups to talk about messaging related to the cyber funding legislation that's been presented to set a flat rate for regular education students and look at some reporting and transparency and other accountability type items for cyber charter schools as part of that. So it was a good, productive day. Representative Borowski sends her regards, and so I just wanted to report on that I was in attendance at that today. And then the second item of note is I just wanted to note that our student representative, Chase Carlton, this will be his last meeting as we don't have a June Finance Committee meeting scheduled. So I just want to thank you for your time and your great questions and your participation this year, and hopefully it was a good experience for you. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, I also want to send my congratulations to you and thank you so much for your valuable input on our committee. We really appreciate it. And I also want to thank you, Mr. Pauling, for representing school districts at the state level. It's an honor for us to have you out there. We know that you can offer so much to the state and to the legislators that are trying to wrangle through this education policy. So thank you for extending yourself that way.
Yes, thank you.
On behalf of all the students in Pennsylvania, really. Second item on the agenda is public comment. Is there any public comment, any email? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move right into the review of the minutes from our April meeting. Committee members, any issues with the minutes?
No issues for me.
Okay, Susan? Okay, they stand as written. That moves us into our action items on the agenda. We have a boatload of stuff on here, so let's start. I guess we've got all these approvals of contracts. Do you want to start there?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can go through all these, and just because we do have a pretty full agenda, we tried to pack in a lot of our annual contract renewals as well as some housekeeping items that we'll get to later in the agenda. But some of the contracts that we have for approval for this month is a consulting contract with Essen Consulting for food services. It's $125 an hour. Essen Consulting has been serving as our basically as a full-time contracted consultant with us, and Barb Nissel, who's the head of Essen Consulting, is kind of stepping back and maybe enjoying her retirement years a little bit more. So she had requested the district, not renew her on a full-time basis, but be there to support us as needed at that hourly rate. So we don't have a cap in there because with it being the first year of transition, we want to allow some flexibility, but that would be, at my discretion in the business office, working with our food service department should something come up. We may require some more hours if we have an audit going on that we might require some assistance. But I don't see, based on the conversation with Barb, that we would be utilizing it too much. And, we would try to, combine our questions together should we need to reach out to Barb for anything. And just want to thank her for, what she's done with the district. And it's a good safety net for us moving forward. It's there if we need it. But I don't anticipate it will be a huge amount of time that we'd have to reach out to her for that. We have some renewals for substitute nursing from Bayada, for special education consulting through Phoenix, and then behavior analytical services through Building Blocks that are renewals from prior years. We have a litany of our Power School agreements, which run for different terms. So Dr. Hand and the appropriate departments have reviewed these to look at the appropriate time frame for renewals. So we have terms listed there. Some are for different time periods based on our internal review of that, and those cover everything from our time clock system, our special programs software, our e-finance software, our student information software through eSchool. So really the core of the operational and student-based software packages are what's included in those renewals with Power School that are listed there. So those are the contracts. I can finish going through if you want to stop there with questions.
Yeah, so, this Power School, why is this, I guess because it's a 4-year?
Yeah, some are multiple years, so because they're multiple, we listed the full amount of the terms, but
Okay.
so for example, the Power School Special Programs is a 4-year contract, so the $171,000 is for the 4 years, so we'd have a multiple year. And with Power School, we do get some discounts the longer that we go out, so that's where we did the evaluation of where would we be in those X number of years to do renewals or reevaluate those. So that's gone into the consideration, and Dr. Hand can.
Yeah, I have a specific, actually, question about the special programs. What, is this IEP writer? Like what?
Correct. So
Okay.
the district had IEP Writer prior to this.
Oh,
So this
okay.
is the software that replaces it.
Okay.
Each of the 4-year terms have an annual uplift. They have a percentage that they increase every year. So next year it'll be $40,000. It's $42,000 after that. And as Mr. Pauling shared, they included the total of that term. And they're all within budget.
Yeah, but do you think we need, like there's 9 different areas of support that,
If we didn't have those programs through Power School, they'd be through another company.
okay. And you think Power School's the best? Like you like this one better than IEP Writer, for example, or
So
IEP Plus? Or
the special education department went through a process where they had looked at different programs probably 4 to 5 years ago at this point.
Okay.
Where they decided to move, and Power School Special Programs was the selected product.
Okay.
And that's similar to the process we did with the financial software a few years ago when we did an evaluation and we decided to move from our old system to Power School. That also included, we talked about going to an electronic timekeeping system, which is the Time Clock Plus system. So there's a number of different things from the finance side that we had talked about when we did this about 3 years ago now.
So is there a way, since you really have everything, it seems like maybe there's efficiencies to all being on Power School, is there a way to get a discount for doing
It do-
all of these on Power School?
Yeah, those discounts are included because we have multiple packages. So like you said, there's some efficiency for anywhere where any of these softwares need to talk to each other. Being with Power School, it helps that. Now, not as much like student information to e-finance because there's not really a cross there, but on the special information and the regular student information, there's a lot of cross dialogue. With the Time Clock Plus system and the e-finance system, the way that works is we have all of our hourly staff recording their time either on a time clock when they come in or on the computer, and then we aggregate that time, it's reviewed, it's approved, and then that electronically imports along with our leaves of absence from that into our e-finance system. So Allison and our payroll department can use that to process payroll every 2 weeks. So it's all an integrated automatic process with some manipulation where needed for corrections.
Okay, so the biggest chunks are eSchool, and then the second biggest chunk, I guess, is records, teacher assessment. What's that?
That's the e-finance.
GSAP?
That's the whole e-finance package. So that includes, with that are also HR tools that Mr. Stitzel and his department uses with the assessments, and the Spark Hire videos is a It's like a first wave of an interview application process where people can submit video interviews. So it's not listed there, but that renewal is including our e-finance and all of those associated finance and HR software packages.
Wow. It's a huge chunk of money. It's several salaries for several teachers each year. I don't know.
I know, I mean, I think this is close to $1 million,
Yeah.
if not slightly over that. I appreciate it. I know that it's just part of the cost of operating the district, and we are talking about HR, finance, education, the student services department, and it's a breadth of contracts. It's a lot to see it at once. My only question about it, and I'm making the assumption, because I trust all of you do this, and I mean that sincerely, I know that you all do this, that you've negotiated the terms, the terms of the contracts are the ones that are most advantageous and yielded us the best discounts and all of that, and that's why some are 4 years and some are 3 years and some are yearly, all of that.
Yep.
Appreciate all of that. My only question about it, just in our due diligence, fiduciary responsibility, is that so as for instance, above where you listed the previous pay for the BIATA substitute nurses and the ABA therapy, it gives us a context for, we went from 50 to 52. Okay, LPNs 43 to 50. Well, there's a bit more of a shortage. I'm not surprised by that. Things like that. It would be helpful for me. I'm not saying to do it now, but it would be helpful for me to know what the previous term had been. Particularly if it had been the same length of time, but if it hadn't been, if this is a 4-year term and the last term was 3, tell us that. Say it was 132,000, but it was a 3-year term, whatever. It just gives us a context of if there's something that's jumping up, such that it might cause us as finance committee members to say, we appreciate that you enjoy the product, it's great. Is it time to consider looking at something else that could be more cost effective? Now, particularly with regard to students, I understand that there's a whole other element of, is it doing the job we need? And I'm not disputing any of that. I'm just strictly speaking from it's difficult to have a context of, are these prices rising, really quickly, such that it's our responsibility to at least ask, how are things going? Is this still the best value? Have you looked at other things? And by the way, I know that that's stuff that you already often do, but we have a responsibility to just at least be aware of it. So moving forward, if we could have just that other piece of the context, that would be helpful.
I think we can get a summary, because when we looked at this, like we were doing with the other items, it would have been very confusing with the terms and what to put it on the
Absolutely.
agenda. So we can certainly provide you a summary.
Even, a
going
memo,
back of what
a
that
memo on the
was.
side for just, as I said, for context.
Yeah.
You know,
we can do that.
because we all want to be able to say that we know the district is doing these things in the most efficient and cost-effective manner.
Yeah, and when we did, like, I'll just speak from the e-finance side, when we went through that conversion and we interviewed multiple software companies and we looked at the functionality and the cost, like, I'll speak for you, this is not something that we want to undertake every couple years of changing a software package. Like, it is, I am not understating the amount of time that gets put into something like that, so.
And that's a valid response to us, by the way. Oh, no, e-school for students is doing the job, and it would be really an expensive operation to change. That's a valid response to us, in my opinion. I'm just saying to you, it's context for us.
And so we do evaluate all that, because like what we did as part of our determination, this was going to be it. Like, so we went into every piece of evaluation and review because this was not something we wanted to do again. So we took a much deeper dive into the considerations of doing that.
Oh,
So-
with e-finance, no, I knew
Oh,
with
yeah.
e-finance, I
Yeah.
knew you did that. One last question, it's not on here, I don't remember when our cybersecurity contract comes around, it's just on a different calendar, Dr. Hand?
That's part of our other security, so that's actually filled in with our other contracts as well. So
Right.
it's
Which I wouldn't
which
actually,
contract is that part of? It's not as separate.
Yeah, it is.
It's part of our insurance renewal.
Yes, it is. So that would be coming.
It's actually a section within insurance. It's not as
Yeah,
separate.
so that would be probably at the August meeting, because we haven't had our renewal yet for the insurance. Yeah.
Okay, and then just in terms of our IT security, I'm imagining, as I was looking at this, I'm like, if our IT security were on here, I actually wouldn't want to know the company. I wouldn't want the company to be put there because that creates a vulnerability.
You
So,
got it.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. So when that renewal comes up, I expect to not see the company name and what we're paying, because very smart people will be able to infer what systems we're using, which makes us more vulnerable. Thank you.
Which is
Appreciate that.
another reason we don't, like with our insurance renewals, we don't want to broadcast what our cyber insurance coverage levels are.
Absolutely. So
Yes.
thank you for this transparency, and I appreciate your discretion on the other. Thanks.
I do have a follow-up on that e-finance question.
Yeah.
So I thought we entered that contract. It looks like it's on here again. There's,
So there is
One,
a
two-
small portion that they broke out. It's for customization. So if we should find something in the software, it's kind of like a blanket renewal. It's the one that's it's the small amount, like custom development. Is that the one that you're looking at?
it's the sixth one down. Yeah, I guess that's it. It's
Yeah, so
custom
what that one's for is that's kind of a blanket order. Should we be working with something in the system, and we need to reach out to them, and we have an idea that says this would make this better functionality, but other districts aren't doing it, we may have to pay to do some customization and have some time from a professional development from their end to make changes to that. So we have a blanket in there to cover should that come up.
So e-finance is also part of Power School.
It is, yeah. Power School's the parent company. Yeah, it should be under the description where we have the contract for $217,444.
Oh, it's in that.
Yeah, it's on the quote. We just didn't list it in the description on the
Okay.
agenda, but it is listed on the quote.
Oh, right. Anybody else? Jen?
You guys raised really good points.
Okay.
And
All
I
right.
think we may have, if I think back on it, that comparison I think you may have done when we were switching the banking relationship, and maybe even with the finance software. So yeah, I thought that was really helpful when we had that. So, thank you.
Yeah, so we try to, when we do those things, we try to have quantitative and qualitative data of why we're making a switch or renewing, and so, we go through that process with any of those things. And with this, like I said, it was something we kind of did a little bit deeper, knowing that we want to get it right, because we don't have to want to change this out and make the wrong decision when the time was there. Yeah.
Well, we also don't want them to think that, then they can just keep raising their prices because, they've got us now. Everything's on here. Like,
Yeah.
this is a lot of money. These better be like wonderful, wonderful programs that, do
They-
everything you want them
They
to
are.
do.
If you thought about it, and you had mentioned like the cost of a teacher. So since these are multiple years, like if we didn't have, and it's just the age we live in, if we didn't have these software packages, like to do all of this accounting, we'd need people to do the accounting on green ledger paper, and how would we track all of that? So it's an efficiency, but with the efficiency comes a cost for the software versus a human capital cost of doing those same services.
All right. I guess we have to just swallow this.
Okay, so we have a couple housekeeping items for appointment of myself as the board secretary for a 4-year term, and then Ms. Klaus as treasurer. So the way the appointments work is we normally appoint a board secretary for a 4-year term and a board treasurer for a 1-year term. So we have those listed on there, and it would cover those appropriate time periods. And then we also have Mr. Stitzel listed as a trustee for the Delaware County Public School Healthcare Trust for a term of 2 years. So he's been serving on that from the labor representation to represent the district. And then the other contract there is our annual renewal with PSBA for the package for the policies and everything that we get along with that. And it's a slight increase from last year. Have a couple donations on there. One to recognize, not to embarrass him again, but Mr. Stitzel receiving the William Dowler Award from PASPA. With that came a $1,000 scholarship back to the district. So we're listing that as a donation. We had the Roundup program from Giant. A small general donation from Ready to Wear LLC for Ethan. And then Mr. Dietzler and Dr. McNamara reached out to me about someone, willing to donate an electric grand piano that they were, excited to receive. So we have that on there as well as a donation for some supply bins from Mythian Elementary School.
Well, and actually, Mr. Stitzel is choosing to direct this donation to the district, which is really very kind.
Yeah.
And we're grateful and we're proud of him, so thank you so much.
Definitely.
And I love that. Every time I go in and round up at Giant, because I do that. And it's so nice to see in the aggregate, a lot of other people. And that's actually not even for a full year. That was from January to March, folks.
Yeah.
The detail letter says it's from January to March of this year.
Yep.
And then the letter further says what our district is planning to do with that money. We're going to use it to feed some families here in Radnor over the summer,
Yep.
which is great.
Yep. Yep, it's a great program, and they really do a nice job. Like they make it a point to come out to the school and present us with a donation and take pictures, and so it's good for both sides. Yep. Okay.
Where are we? We're down at 4.02.
Yep. So those are our recommended meal prices for next year. We are recommending no change to the lunch prices at the elementary and secondary level. The state is still covering breakfast and reduced priced lunches for all students through state funding. So that is included in there as well. So as part of that, because looking at the financials of the food service program and some upcoming, recommendations of what we're doing with the program, we felt it was appropriate to not suggest an increase from the current year on the meal prices.
Did lunch for elementary and secondary go up slightly?
No, the 310 and the 335 are the same as
There were
last year.
also no change?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Oh, I keep reading that as no change.
It's no
It was
charge, and then,
no charge,
yeah,
thank you.
I have a footnote at the bottom where we had no increase, so, yeah, we just had the
Thank you.
amounts listed. Yep. Yeah. I could change that and make it free or however, because, yeah, it is hard to delineate. Okay. Do you want me to I can keep rolling through? Okay. So 4.03, that's a housekeeping item we normally have on our June agenda. It's just a confirmation of our joint and cooperative purchasing consortiums where we list out the different available consortiums that we can utilize from, intermediate units to state contracts, regional within Pennsylvania, and then national cooperatives, which we are able to utilize through state procurement law. So should the opportunity come up, we can use these as tools to evaluate pricing and kind of speed up the procurement process, but still going through a process of due diligence and reviewing pricing. It saves us in the legal requirements of having to advertise for 3 weeks and then the advertising costs that go along with that. That's already been done by these consortiums. So we have this on here every year just as an annual confirmation of the ones that we are expecting to potentially utilize.
And these are basically just supplies?
They can be anything. So some of them, like there's multiple co-stars. There's probably close to 50 co-stars contracts, and they can be anywhere from supplies to equipment. Some of the regional and national consortiums have construction-related projects. So we could technically look at some of our facilities. Some minor ones, not the Ithan project, but some of our smaller projects, we would look to potentially utilize some of these if there's a contract in place and the pricing is competitive and it allows us some of the flexibility to look at that and see if it's a contractor that we want to work with. So
Yeah, let's go get that elementary school with the consortium.
sure, yeah, that would not be legal code, but Yes, so, but it is advantageous. So it could be anywhere from supply ordering to equipment to facilities-related projects, technology. It really runs the gamut. So it's a really good catch-all. And, 25 years ago, we used to do sealed bids for a lot of these things. And this has really exploded over the last. Yeah, and itemized bids for all of those things where, yeah, now we can utilize, any of these. Like Pepham's a great one for technology. They have pretty much any technology vendor that has a contract awarded, and they it's all competitive. So they solicit the pricing on that, and they may look at Epson projectors and solicit proposals for Epson, and then they award it. And so that might be a different vendor than what gets an NEC projector. So it's very comprehensive, but they're great tools for us to use.
Can you refresh my memory? What does CoStar stand for?
Yeah.
What do you buy through them?
That's,
Uh-oh.
yeah.
No, that's okay. What do we do with them?
That's the state's program. So I'll bore you with the history. So years ago, there used to be just Pennsylvania state contracts that school districts could piggyback off of. Those were contracts that the Department of General Services solicited on behalf of the state, and they would allow schools to utilize them as a subdivision of the state. That went away for a period of time, and then the schools, through advocacy and other, we said, hey, we were utilizing these, so they brought the program back, but then titled it CoStars as like a new program for only schools to use. But we now also have the advantage that we can utilize all of those CoStars contracts, but we can still use some of those state contracts as well.
Okay, so you have that on here.
Yes, so we kind of get the advantage of both right now. So that's how it kind of it was born out of that elimination and then re-implementation of that program. And yeah, so they came up with the CoStars name to, kind of make it
Lydia, cooperative sourcing to achieve reductions in spending.
Thank you.
Google.
We're not supposed to be online when we're having a meeting. No.
It's
I
good
got you
use.
the information. Now I'm back to my board docs.
Yep.
Another thing we do with the cooperative purchasing too is that we use them, to get best pricing within each other too. So we will say that we need a desk and send it out to 3 cooperatives where we don't have to bid it, but then get the best pricing throughout those.
Okay, so the next one is our confirmation of depositories. We put that on there just to approve our financial institutions. You can see that we noted some of our partners that we have investment accounts with. Penn Bank still listed, or is now listed as our main depository. We have TD Bank because of doing the transition with Mid-Penn, and we also have some paying agent accounts related to our debt service with TD Bank. And so, again, this is an annual confirmation that we have, just so we have the board's affirmation of us utilizing those financial institutions. So item 4.05, I had talked to Dr. Batchelor about this, and there's other school districts that utilize this. Because of not having a June meeting, we also have, we oftentimes have routine transactions that come up. Contracts need to be signed. We're making bill payments and things that we do through board action items, through like the bills list and things like that. If we don't have a meeting over the summer, this would basically give me the authority to still conduct the district's business transactions. And then if we would need any contracts that would require board approval, or any other things that we would normally bring to the board, we would do that at the August meeting in the form of a ratification, to just allow us to not lose that time over the summer should something be time sensitive.
We are having a June business meeting, though.
Business meeting, but not finance.
Okay.
Yeah, so with not having a finance meeting, if there was something we needed to put on the June meeting, we would figure out the mechanics of that. But since we're not having a June finance meeting, there'd be a couple months in there before we have our next meeting in August, where if something would need to occur, we'd be able to do that.
So we never did this before because we had a June meeting or a July meeting? Is that kind of the difference?
We used to have, when I first got here, we were having meetings all year, and then we cut back on the July one, and now with not having the June one.
Why
and-
aren't we having a June one?
I think we just decided that we could get everything accomplished tonight, from a financial standpoint. So,
June finance meeting, we're having a June business meeting. If there's something we actually have to
Yeah.
vote on in June, we'll vote on it at the June
Well,
business meeting.
Yeah.
It'll just be
Yeah.
something that won't have gone to the finance committee first.
should it need to be, yeah.
Right, yes.
So I think the difference is that we used to maybe have issues about the budget sometimes into June. So and I think we used to also sometimes meet in July, so.
Yeah, so what this does is, it's the routine things, like, because the board is required to approve our disbursements, and so we do that in the form of bringing you financial reports back. So it's part of a compliance thing, just to make sure that we're not doing anything, and oftentimes, like, we have budgetary contracts that need to be signed above what allows me to normally do that in the board policy. So this would kind of cover that, and then we would bring those back for ratification at the August meeting, should something be time sensitive. The next item is our annual approval of our property tax and rent rebate resolution. This is a program we implemented a few years ago to provide residents with a matching tax rebate that they would be able to apply through the Department of Revenue property tax and rent rebate program. So we've had, believe this is the third year, full year that we've been doing this. And just some statistics for the '23 tax year to date, we're still accepting applications for that through the end of June, but we've had 43 property owners and one renter submit for rebates for about $29,400. So what that is residents that qualify for the state's property tax and rent rebate program. The district offers a matching rebate not to exceed what they paid in taxes to the district. We pay that out upon proof of all of their financial information that would make them eligible for the state rebate, as well as confirmation of payment for the state rebate. So we're confirming it after the state confirms it, and we do that disbursement every year. So I pulled the most recent data that I had from the '22 tax year from the state level for Radnor as a whole, for the community of those that submitted for the Department of Revenue's program. So we had 121 total applicants. So 90 of those were property owners, and the other 31 were renters. So, we're getting close to 50%. If we had 90 owners that year, we paid out 43 property owner rebates. We've been increasing that number steadily. The state paid $57,000 in total rebates, and that was based on those people submitting for $2 million of income that they were receiving, and then they paid about $808,000 in taxes on the aggregate. So those are just some statistics that we have. So, we've been building this up and being able to provide rebates back to those in our community that really need it the most. And the state's been putting more towards that as well, and increasing the income thresholds and providing some supplemental rebates for those with a severe need. And we've been providing a matching to those as well.
Wait, so there was 120 applicants, but only 43 qualified, or what?
So there were 121 total that submitted to the Department of Revenue.
Okay,
So 90 of those were property owners, the other 31 were renters.
okay.
So that was from the '22 tax year. That's the most recent data I have from the state. In our '23 tax year, we had 43 of those 90, let's say, carried over, submit to get a matching rebate from us. So about half of the people from the
Okay.
prior year that were eligible for the state rebate also applied for ours as well. So for us, it's a marketing, to get the word out on our tax bills and through our legislators and other means to make more people in the community aware that we have that.
So, first of all, thank you, because I'm really happy that we were able to find a way to do this. So I'm grateful, because I think it does make a difference for some homeowners in our community. I know that Representative Borowski advertises the state rebate in her newsletter. She's very proactive about trying to make sure that people in her constituency know about this. I don't know if it might be possible for us to tack on a message through her that, you can also apply in Radnor. She covers 3 different townships, so that may be a little bit. I don't know if the other 2 townships are if the other 2 school districts are in a situation where they feel like this is something they can do, and it's not for me to say what other communities can do. This is something that was important to us, and we're able to do. I do want to continue to try to find ways to let our community know, and I can't recall, I think we talked in the past about, do we put a letter or a postcard or something in our tax bills to let our community know that this is an option? And
We put a note on the tax bill. We have a limited amount of space on there, so, because they're self-sealing, so we don't take the tax bill and put it in an envelope and then be able to provide a separate mailer to go
that's
along
right,
with
it's the
it.
new style now, that's
Yeah.
right. We moved to, that's right. A few years, just even as recently as 2 or 3 years ago, it was a different style bill. The bill was in an envelope.
Yeah.
So,
So we've tried to, and I know Senator Capoletti had put out some messaging maybe a year or 2 ago about our program specifically and some other districts that were utilizing that. So I try to, maintain that contact with them when they have an opportunity to, provide that messaging that we have it. I had reached out to the senior center about getting the word out through them.
we could consider putting a poster over at the township building if they would let us. But the other question I have is, does our business office interface with the people who put in this application, or is it kind of they just do it on their own and we get the paperwork?
We have to do it on their own. We actually tried to submit a right-to-know request to get the information for the people that are submitting for the state rebate to specifically market to them, and we were denied.
Thank you. Let me just finish. The last question is, but I think my question is, those who are reaching out to us, I'd be curious to know if there's a way for us to find out from those the 43 property owners and the 1 renter, how did they hear about our program?
Yeah.
I just want us to continue to put our thinking cap on, and how can we reach the community and let them know that this is an option for them.
Yeah.
And a senior citizen is still considered 65, or is it 67, whatever Social
It's
Security is?
65 on here, and then
Okay.
there's income requirements as
No,
well.
I knew there's income, I just didn't, but you have to be 65.
Yeah.
Okay, all
And
right.
then the other thing we will do is, because with the new relationship with Mid-Penn Bank, we'll be able to put some information in their hands so that if they have residents coming in to pay their taxes at the branch,
Oh.
they'll be able to provide that information
That would be
out.
great.
Which we do here as well, but that will be just another place where if they need to stop in there versus mailing it in.
I'm sure that they would partner with us.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
That will make them feel great to know that they could help
Sure.
community members. That's great, thank
Yeah.
you.
So I'm pleased we have this program. I think you've done everything that is reasonable to do to reach people. I'm not hung up on trying to give money back to people, so I'm pleased we have it, and I'm pleased people are taking advantage of it, and what you've done to me is above and beyond, so I'm fine with that.
Thank you. Okay.
Where are we now?
We're at
on-
007, 4.07.
our
So at the
meetings.
meeting schedule, so we went through and tried to identify, usually we try to target the latest Tuesday in the month for our action meetings. Sometimes we have circumstances around holidays where that's not possible. We have our board reorganization meeting, which is required in the first week of December. And then just for my purpose for Act One, the 30-day requirement in between the April and May meeting for final and proposed final budget approvals, so we have that built into the schedule as well. So those are what we had. We tried to keep that, as consistent as possible from this year with those considerations.
So thinking about this committee meeting, I would like to suggest that we do have a June Finance Committee meeting, because we're usually very early in the month. And that way, hopefully we'll have the budget out of the way, and then you wouldn't have to do all these contracts and the budget and everything all in May. And I think that might maybe serve all of us better. Like,
Okay.
I'm fine with us meeting in June to spread out the stuff that you have to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nope, I can take that back. Yep. Okay. So 4.08 is a memorandum of understanding with our RESPA bargaining unit. And you will probably be seeing more of these come through. We are working on implementing the Prudent RX rebate program for our prescription drugs. Implementation of that with our bargaining unit requires a memorandum of understanding with them. So we are discussing this right now with all of our bargaining units, working to get this implemented. The feedback's been very positive. So the first group that we had their membership approve the MOU was the RESPA group. So we have that on the agenda, and then as we get subsequent ones, we'll present those moving forward. This might be one of those examples of if we get an MOU after the June meeting, that's something that we could move forward with and then have the MOU ratified in August so that we don't lose time on getting people signed up for the rebate program. We're negotiating with two groups now, so we would work this into the language as part of their negotiations. So we may not require an MOU for those, but we'll have more of these coming in for each bargaining unit to implement that program, which is going to save us money on our prescription drugs costs, as well as the employees for the specialty drugs, since there's no copay cost to them as part of the program as well. So it's a win-win for the employee and the district as well.
Is this some of the end result of the, we had a conversation as a committee, asking to you and Mr. Stitzel to try to get a handle on, we had some pretty exorbitant increases in our prescription costs on the budget. And this Prudent RX is one of those efforts, is that?
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the reason we're coming to you with this now is, we just generally, we had some difficulty obtaining our information on the RX usage and utilization that we could get back to our consultant to then utilize and implement the program. So we had some delays in getting that, which is why we're coming to you later than what we would have liked to. But we've really, we've gotten that, and we're in the process of getting, all of our bargaining units on board with that and meeting with all of those groups to explain the program so that they know what the details are. Okay.
Great.
4 point.
Anybody? Question? Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. So 4.09 is our slate for the Delaware County Intermediate Unit Board of Directors. So you'll see Dr. Babson, our representative, is listed there. We did act on approving him at a prior meeting. This is for the rest, including him, that are on up for election from the other districts that need a representative right now. So we have those on there for that approval. And last but not least is the budget. So I have 13 minutes. We are presenting a final budget tonight in the amount of $124,998,193, representing a tax increase of 3.85%, which is under our 4% increase allowable from Act 1. And I just have a couple slides here that I'll run through to kind of show where we were from the last meeting up through now. And we had talked with a quick turnaround at the April 8th meeting. We still had a deficit built in, but we had talked about, identifying some areas of review that would help us to get down to a better number within the budget. So we met internally as a team. We went through all of our departmental budgets, our staffing budgets, and I'll just go through a couple of those adjustments now. Based on what we're seeing from a staffing perspective, we normally budget 10 contingency positions in the budget. We felt comfortable with reducing that number from 10 down to 8 from anticipated needs for next year. So that nets us a savings of about $221,000. And then we have some departmental reductions there. really these departmental reductions were reviewing current year expenditures versus what we had estimates in the budget for some of those required items and just making some refinement on those items. It's not an elimination of services or programming or anything that would impact students or staff. They're more refinements where we were able to go in and look at what we were trending for the current year, what our prior year costs were, and to kind of fine tune those numbers down. So with those expenditure adjustments, we were able to reduce that recommended tax increase from 4% down to 3.85%, which reduced the required revenue by about $143,000. So we're presenting tonight a final budget that is balanced at the 3.85% at just under $125 million. The next slide is just some information on where we've been historically. And, I always like to look at numbers and kind of see, like, sometimes they're just numbers and sometimes they, can tell you a little bit. And I looked at our increases under Act 1 and just kind of ran some averages to see, what our proposed millage increases were in those years. And just some interesting things that kind of stood out to me. So in the last 10 years, so since the 15-16 school year, our average of the increases has been at 2.85% on those numbers in the second to last column, and that's including the 3.85 that we're proposing for next year's budget. Since Act 1's been implemented, so the right-hand side of that chart on the second to last column, the average has been 3.02%. And if you exclude those 3 years where we were just implementing Act 1, we were building the middle school, and we had increases above the Act 1 index through exceptions. If you take those first 3 years out, our average increase, including next year, has been 2.5% over that time.
Sorry, could you please repeat what the average was? So this is 2006 through and including 25, 26?
Yeah, so
What's
the 10 years, so if you take the
10 year.
2015-16,
Okay,
starting at the 1.9%,
Okay.
and then include the 3.85, that 10-year average was 2.85%.
2.85.
And then the total for all of those numbers is 3.02%. And then if you take out those first 3 years, the 5.83, the 5, and the 7, so just looking at 2009-10, 3.9% on, and again, it's not listed on the chart, but including the 3.85 we're proposing for next year's final budget, the average of those increases is 2.5%. So I think with the kind of the ebbs and flows of state funding, back in 2010, 2011, we saw our cyber charter reimbursement go away. We saw some money come back for that last year, and it's gone away again. We saw a wave of federal funding related to COVID, which came and went, temporary funding. So I think over that time, operationally for us, after the middle school project was completed, and now as we're leading into ITHN and phasing in that debt as part of these budgets, to be at a 2.5% increase on average over that time, from my predecessor's work and the previous board's work, over that time, to keep us where we're at and be in a good financial position. I think that's where, to me, the numbers, they speak as to historically what we've done on our budgets going back over that time.
Interesting.
The next slide is just to kind of update what the impact is on the taxpayer at those different assessed values with the final 3.85%. So at the average assessed value, those taxpayers would see a $400 increase on their tax bill from the previous year based on that recommended increase. And then at this point, we have, if anything comes up that should require a change to the final budget, anything, new information from the state or anything like that, should any adjustments need to be made, we can certainly make those prior to the May 27th meeting, and we would notify the board. But at this point, we've done, multiple internal reviews of the budget. I don't see anything else coming in that would substantially change it. So I think this would be, where our final budget would be recommended for approval at the May 27th meeting.
Who wants to go first?
I just want to say thank you and how grateful I am for all your work. I'm really, all of you, kudos. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
DJ, any
Yeah, I just want to echo
questions?
that. We had, a few weeks ago, we had talked about coming in under 4, we had talked about 3.9, and you even beat that, and without hurting the services and still room for growth for the community, so that was fantastic.
Thank you.
Claire?
I will also echo that. Thank you. It's so great to see that 124,998 balance number at the bottom. It's, good to see, even though it's a big number. I had a quick question about some of the expense reductions. In the one that I was just curious about is the transportation. What does that mean? Does it mean a vehicle or does it mean
Mostly
services?
supplies. We looked at like fuel commodity costs
Okay.
and things like that. So I think in the transportation, it was mostly related to supply type items where we looked at replacement part line item, some of the fuel expenditures, and just looking at what we were trending on fuel utilization, what, we were looking at. We made a couple reductions there.
Okay.
But we still have, I believe, 3 vehicles in the budget for purchase, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head whether it was 2 large buses and 1 smaller, or 2 smaller and 1 large. But we have those, and Mr. Daniele will work on providing me a list of when we have older, outdated buses that need to be replaced. We include those, and they're in the budget as a fund transfer. It goes to our capital reserve, and we purchase the buses out of that fund.
Because we did that last year, I remember, right?
We did. We did reduce that last year. So this year, we came into it and we had, only those 3 vehicles. So we didn't make a reduction in those 3. They're still included in the budget.
Okay, thank you. And then in terms of the contingency positions, how many did we use this year? I don't know what the proper word is.
Yeah, so this year we utilized, Mr. Stitz will probably know off the top of his head better than I do, but I think we didn't utilize all of them. It was about 6. That's what I was thinking. We had about 4 left. Yeah.
What would we budgeted for 10 last year as
Yeah,
well? So we
we
felt
did.
comfortable going to.
Yeah, and that changes. So depending on things that we have going on, whether we're, looking to implement programs or we look at our, class sizes and all of the things that we look at from a review, that's where we look to see, like, should we have any unanticipated positions or positions that aren't currently, a specific person in the budget as a line item. That's where we have that built into that. And so as we've reviewed that, we felt that we were pretty close to, that 8 versus the 10, and from a starting level. So as far as utilization, we feel comfortable with that number.
And an example of a contingency position that would come up might be,
Somebody registers for first grade, or 2 people in August at IFIN, and all of a sudden, your
We're
first grade
double.
classes are over
Got
the 21, the number of students, that we want to stick
so
to.
mostly teachers.
It can be support staff also. So the way that we calculate that is we look at it from teachers. So I will budget for a teacher position with benefits, and that's what makes up the number. So should we need a position that would cost less than what we have allocated for that teacher, it may only utilize half of a contingency position. So one position is roughly $110,000 with salary and benefits. So should the position require less, we would utilize less on the total number of contingencies, but the whole dollar amount, that's how that's constructed.
Great, thanks for that
Sure.
clarification.
All right, excellent questions, Claire. Thank you. So I'm delighted, of course, that we got under the 4%. I just still think it's really important to say this is a lot of money, and I'm delighted that we're down a little bit lower. 3.85 is still a hefty increase. There's people in our community who are suffering from, the economic turmoil. They've lost their jobs. There's challenges with people's investments. And I think it's also important to make the community aware. We realize, it's a burden for us. We realize that we're spending the community's money. And so we really want to try to strike that right balance between what we need to do to keep education excellent. That's our first mission. But we also need to, be really thrifty with where we spend that money so we get the best outcome for students at the best price. And so we are aware this is still a hefty increase. I do not take that lightly. And I think this is a fair compromise at the moment. But I'm very mindful, we don't know what's going to happen with the economy. We don't know what's going to happen with inflation. And I think there's somewhat of a notion that, salaries keep up with the Act 1 index because they're tied to inflation. That isn't true for everyone in Radnor. There's people here on fixed incomes. There's people here, like I said, that may have lost their jobs or are self-employed that are maybe facing, ramifications of tariffs. Their salaries are not going to keep up with this Act 1, sort of projection of inflation. So, we're doing the best we can with this situation, but I really want the community to know that we are trying to scrutinize this and find the right landing place here. So, but thank you to you guys for helping us, get down below that 4%. I appreciate that.
Sure. And I'll just add a note that I have the state required PD 2028 form listed as a draft. There'll be a couple minor corrections to that. We just got our property tax rent rebate allocation from the state, and that actually increased. Whether that's a good thing or not, more people must be gambling because that's where the proceeds of that come from. We get money back from gambling. So keep it up, people, because it benefits us. So we did see an increase. So those people that have applied for a homestead farmstead reduction will see a bigger reduction to help offset some of this on their tax bills this year. And so the state had not loaded that into their system as of yet, so it's technically still showing as an error in our system that will hopefully be corrected once they load that into the software. So there'll be a couple minor housekeeping changes on this form prior to the May meeting, but it's cleanup because it just wasn't loaded into the system yet.
Any other comments about budget? It's our biggie. That brings us to item 5, which is new business. Any new business? All right. Any public comment generated from our budget discussion? Seeing none. That brings us, I guess, to the conclusion of the meeting. We do not meet in June, so have a nice summer.